2007 was a special time for video games. It's when most big franchises we know from today made their debut. The most notable ones being Uncharted, Mass Effect, The Witcher, Bioshock, and of course, Assassin's Creed. I admit, it's been a while since I've played the original AC1. I remember I was a little 11-year-old kid who just rented out this game, excited to boot it up and play it. And man, I was not disappointed. Admittingly, I was super confused with the weird story and the overall lore, and to be honest, I found it really boring at the time. However, I really enjoyed the gameplay, stealth, the parkour, just the overall feeling of being an assassin, especially in a unique setting like this. The Third Crusade was certainly a fascinating setting and definitely not explored at all at the time. It felt different being in the past, as so many games around that time seemed to go for a heavily modern or futuristic sci-fi setting. But not this one, back when Ubisoft were actually ballsy and went against the flow. AC1 is the birthchild and spiritual successor of Prince of Persia. Ubisoft basically took everything from Prince of Persia Sands of Time's gameplay and decided to make it into an open world, where you get to play as a nameless prince or an assassin. It was a bold decision, one that paid off pretty well, however at the cost of the death of the Prince of Persia franchise. But I'll get into that later in another video in the future maybe. In this video, however, we'll take a look back at AC1, re-exploring and analyzing its world, gameplay, mechanics, side activities and narrative in general. So sit back, relax and enjoy this video. Please hit a like and subscribe if you did. It will certainly help me a great deal as videos like this take long to make, but without further ado, let's deep dive into AC1. I remember entering Damascus in AC1 for the first time and being absolutely blown away by the spectacular view, accompanied by the wonderful ambience music of Jesper Kid. It legit felt like I was in a painting. Also, the fact that I could seamlessly enter the city through the gates just really left me speechless. For me, AC1 is a game that fundamentally changed and revolutionized the genre of open world sandbox games. Because at the time, there were not many like Assassin's Creed, as most games around that time were pretty linear in design. At best, they had like a small hub area to explore only for a certain part of the game. But AC1 was fully open-ended, with a huge Middle Eastern kingdom to explore, from riding to the Rocky Mountains connecting the whole kingdom together to the dense cities of Accra, Jerusalem and Damascus, all well designed with the intent of parkour and stealth in mind. It was most certainly a game changer, pun intended. Each city in AC1 feels so fresh and unique and has its own feel. From the holy city of Jerusalem, which gives a very religious and spiritualistic feel, amid all the savage butchering, death and despair during the Third Crusade. Jerusalem for some reason feels so calm, holy and pure, even though it is literally the breeding grounds for the entire crusade. It's really hard to explain why Jerusalem is the way it is. It feels like a pure religious paradise. Then we have Accra, probably the most iconic city of the lot, and the one that was used heavily in the marketing and AdWords of this game. Accra is a city that I would say best represents the mystical and eerie elements of AC1. There is something strange about Accra, like someone's watching us and our every move. This weird feeling of danger around the corner. The broken buildings and shady markets really don't give off a welcome vibe. The whole city feels intimidating and dangerous. And lastly, we have Damascus, a prideful and prosperous city. With its rich markets, its beautiful mosques, buildings and palaces, this city doesn't feel shy to show itself off. It's a shining diamond in the rough. The art design is immaculate and so beautifully translates the Third Crusade onto the screens. The color palette for each city is so distinct, with Damascus a very bright yellow-orangey color, symbolizing hope and optimism in these troubled times. Jerusalem with its greens symbolizing peace and spirituality. And lastly, Accra with its 50 shades of grey, lol, representing something eerie and mysterious going on in the shadows. And of course, we also have the large expanse of the kingdom connecting all these cities together. Admittingly, it is pretty boring to ride across this area. I do feel that this area feels very unnecessary for the most part. There isn't much to do besides killing guards, synchronizing points and collecting flags. There's also no main missions in this area, also not enough buildings to parkour in since it's completely wide open with only small towns and villages. It really gives me flashbacks of the newer AC games. So I really don't see why this area exists in the first place, especially since you can fast travel into the main cities anyway. It's a shame really, there's a lot of missed potential here. You probably could have easily had a cool chase sequence or some other big set piece from the main story here. This area, in my opinion, would have definitely benefited from just being linear and only accessible through a particular mission, kinda like Arsov. The kingdom, unfortunately, is a waste of space. Lastly, we have the stronghold of the assassins, Masyaf, one of the most iconic locations in the franchise. I love its unique design. As you make your way up to the city and onto the fortress, it feels like coming home, back to your crib. I love these home hub areas in video games, the area where you can come back to chit chat with your allies and whatnot, like the Normandy in Mass Effect or Kaer Morhen in The Witcher. Unfortunately, you can't really interact much with the characters or anyone else outside of the main story, which is a shame. Would have loved to know more about Altair's friends and acquaintances. Since it's home, the city is super parkour friendly as well, and you can descend super easily through cleverly placed hay bales. However, a wrong button press and you're off the rails. Marcia feels the most safest and calm compared to the crowded and bustling cities. It's also super nostalgic for me. I feel chills every time it's introduced in the game, considering the amount of narrative weight and significance this place carries. Although I would say it is a bit weird that the game allows me to fight my own assassin brothers and literally murder them in cold blood. I feel like it would have been better if the guards knock you out or something, or the game only allows you to fight them unarmed, and if you're defeated you respawn back to the castle with your weapons temporarily taken away and given back to you while you exit the castle. Kinda like GTA for example. I love Masyaf and all the other cities and areas in this game, except the kingdom of course. What I especially like about these cities in general, besides the fact that they are densely packed, built for parkour and whatnot, is the fact that each of them have a distinct personality, a certain look and feel to them, which I think is really important to make games interesting. You have to make the world look distinct, unlike Assassin's Creed Valhalla where the world just looks like a badly ripped off Witcher clone, with very little variety in environments. Anyway, I can roast Valhalla some other time, but let's move on. I also love that each city looks alive and vibrant. The orator going about his propagandic sermons, the monks minding their own business in the corner, the merchants and civilians haggling for goods and prices. These little things breathe life into the city, which is what I love in video games in general, to be lost and immersed in this fictional world, very much thinking it's real. I really do miss dense and intimate cities like this in AC, and I'd much rather prefer this over massive empty open square miles of fields or desert. Anyway, I feel like we have spent enough time pondering on and revisiting AC's mystical world. It's time for gameplay. AC1 is built to make you feel like an assassin. Everything from its combat, stealth, and movement system. People might argue that AC1 might have the simplest gameplay mechanics, but I'm here to prove you wrong. So, where should we start? Let's start off first with AC1's signature selling point, which is stealth, hiding in plain sight. AC1 incorporates stealth by implementing a full-on detection system that has become not only a staple from the franchise, but also other games too. In this system, you have this little icon that changes every time your social status changes, where the flickering yellow light represents that you're unseen, but enemies are still actively searching for you and will attack you if they see you. The subtle red eye warns you that you're being watched and enemies are very suspicious of you. This is indicated by them having their swords fully out. This could be avoided by remaining in low profile, by blending using the unarmed button, which is a bit weird because it looks way more suspicious than before. But whatever, I guess it works. The yellow eye represents that enemies are watching you, they are suspicious of you, but not as much as when the icon turns into the red eye. The aggressive glowing red icon basically means you're fully exposed and the enemies are in active pursuit of you. This only happens when you have committed high-profile actions. You can shake down these enemies by breaking the line of their sight. If you're successful, the social status icon would change down to yellow, making you unseen to them. To completely get rid of your pursuers, you have to look for a hiding spot. There are 4 ways to hide from enemies in this game, which are the haystacks, the rooftop gardens, benches, and blending in with the monks. The monks can also be used to sneak you into heavily guarded areas. Also, you need to make sure the icon is yellow before hiding in these spots, as it doesn't make sense to hide if enemies have you in sight. Once you're hidden, the icon changes to blue, means you're completely vanished in the eyes of the enemy. However, you have to be careful and wait till you become completely anonymous, which is indicated by the subtle green flicker, followed by the icon going back to normal. It's a very smart and well thought out system that Assassin's Creed really pioneered, that you could say a lot of games took inspiration from and still make use of today. Although I would say that sometimes the detection system could be broken, however, given what becomes of a detection system in the later games, I can very much say it is not that bad. Another thing that AC pioneered that is used in a lot of games these days is ego vision, the sixth sense that assassins possess, which can be used to detect objects or people of interest. It can be activated by pressing the head button. However, it can only be activated in full sync, meaning you need to have a full health bar. Each person of interest is marked with a special color. White means it's for information, so it can be used to discover investigation missions. Blue indicates that those people are your allies. Yellow represents that it's your assassination target. And lastly, red represents that it's your enemy. In my opinion, Eagle Vision in this game isn't really that useful. It's a cool addition and I can see why so many games took inspiration from it. However, I went the majority of the game without even using it. It doesn't really appear that useful to me as the minimap clearly helps you locate points or people of interest. I mean, I know I can easily turn off the minimap and use it, but I feel like some things should just be revealed through Eagle Vision. The subsequent games make better use of the feature in my opinion. Moving on to the combat, AC1 really makes you feel that cool, powerful assassin fantasy. With its counter-based combat system, combat is another skill to master in AC1. Timing is everything, as even a little delay could have grave consequences as the enemy gets the upper hand and does a fair bit of damage. Basically, when faced with enemies and when they try to attack you, you need to quickly press the counter button whilst having your guard up in order to activate a successful counter kill. It needs to be timed just right as soon as the enemy's weapon comes in contact with yours. It's definitely a very intimidating and challenging skill to master, especially at the start of the game, but as the game goes on, you unlock different skills and abilities and get new gear that aid you in the fight against the Templars. Some of these moves are really helpful in big combat situations. For example, the throw move to grab and throw enemies off is highly effective, especially in getting quick takedowns, whether it be with the hidden blade or by throwing them off a roof of a building, in merchant stalls or scaffolding. It really helps, especially in situations where you will be dealing with hordes of enemies coming at you. However, you have to be careful as some harder enemy types do not like being thrown around and will prevent you from even grabbing them by doing a quick counter on you. To make things worse, the enemies can even use your skills against you, especially the grab and throw mechanic. Although you can successfully counter it off, but again, it requires precise timing of the button press. It's kind of like a mini quick time event if you think about it. You have to make decisions on the fly and be quick to act, or else the game will punish you, and it will punish you more if the enemy decides to pull a chained attack. You can also use the hidden blade in combat to get quick kills, however again, timing of the button press is super important. Moreover, you can maximize damage by using the strong attack by holding down the attack button, although be advised that it is a bit slow and could be stopped by the enemy mid-attack. Breaking the guard of the enemy can also give you the upper hand to get a few good hits in, as you step in using the sprint button and followed by the quick press of the attack button, but as I said before, your skills can and will be used against you. Quick dodging is also a smart way to move out of the enemy's attack range and avoid damage. Another sick move is that you can chain your attacks by simply pressing the attack button as soon as your sword touches the enemy. It could help in achieving quick takedowns. These complex moves can be practiced in the combat arena, which is a safe short way to familiarize yourself with the combat and learn and master specific combat moves. However, don't go in expecting a complex combat arena like Batman Arkham, as you'll be disappointed by the lack of challenge, as it's just a glorified tutorial at the end of the day. Pairing up these abilities and moves together with your basic movesets really makes you feel like a badass. With its brutal takedown and finisher animations, the guards wish they didn't pick a fight with you. It's a bit of a learning curve, but very well worth the reward. Did you know that you can also fight on horseback? I wouldn't recommend it though because it's very clunky and oftentimes not really useful, and it's better to fight on ground. My own big critique about the combat system is that you're clearly not incentivized enough to make use of the wide array of skills available to you. Like I would have really liked if there was something like a combo streak system, kind of like the Batman Arkham games, which builds up for you to instantly take out enemies. Of course, the flow of combat would break as soon as you take damage. I honestly think this would force players to think on the fly and make decisions quick, adding more to the challenge. It's such a shame because a lot of normal players, including me, would never make use of all these skills to our advantage and are likely to keep spamming the counter button, which could get boring real quick. No wonder why people got bored of this old combat system and they had to move on to the hitbox based system. It clearly needed to evolve but never really did. The subsequent games did make it more polished and refined by making more tools and options available. However, in doing so, I believe it sort of took away from the difficulty and challenge of this one. It's still fun, however, to really live that powerful assassin fantasy and being that badass to take out a horde of guards using your quick tact and skill. However, we cannot fight all our battles. When things get heated, it's time to run. Last but not the least, we have the parkour, which I would say is one of the most complex systems in this game. Don't believe me? Look online. There's tons of videos on YouTube just based on AC1's parkour, followed by Assassin's Creed Unity's parkour. Parkour is another skill to master in AC1. However, I hate to break your bones, it's not really that important to do so, as you can literally spend most of the whole game not even bothering to climb up and leap from rooftops. Although it would definitely come in handy during intense chase sequences, especially in a super crowded street of people who would slow you down whether you like it or not. You could push them out your way, but that in turn will slow you down, giving enemies the ability to catch up to you. But if you're not the type of player to run away and would rather just deal with the threat directly, there is literally no reason to run away or even interact with the parkour elements in the first place. Especially if you have mastered the combat system, which is a shame because parkour meant so much in this series. It was a form of expression, a way for assassins to showcase their liberty and freedom, which is clearly evident in the fluid and really hands-off parkour system. This is clearly the best parkour has ever been. Yeah, I get it, people might argue Unity's parkour is better, however it's utterly broken and extremely janky still. There's so much you could do with parkour in AC1. One really handy move that in my opinion really helps you quickly ascend buildings is side and back ejects. I don't know, there's something really satisfying to pull off one. Basically when you're climbing a building or a complex structure, you have to steer your joystick or button towards the beam or ledge on your side or whatever's behind you that you want to climb. Although you need to ensure you're aiming correctly, as one misclick and you're straight back down. It's hard at first, especially if you're not playing the game using a controller, but you quickly become used to it, and you'll be performing those moves like it's nothing. But there are times when Altair fails to grab on ledges and falls down to his death, and sometimes even does random shit. This has been a long-running problem of the series, and this issue never really got addressed. Also, the occasional jank and clunkiness could really ruin the beautiful, uninterrupted flow of parkour moves that you just created. It's a shame, especially if it's not your fault and the game punishes you unnecessarily. This is clearly evident in one of the main assassination missions in the game, the one involving Thamir. It was clearly made with the intention of having a cool parkour chase in mind, but the constant problems of your character climbing on walls or places that you didn't even intend to in the first place really ruins the whole mission. Seriously, the amount of times I've replayed this game and that mission never fails to piss me off. On the bright side though, it is still beautiful when it's working, and did I tell you about this sick move that you could pull out called vaulting? It's insane. Basically, while jumping across beams, bars and other obstacles, you have to press and hold the unarmed button along with the jump button, and Altair will smoothly vault over the bar from which you can drop. It's such a neat little move that I had no idea about. I don't know why Ubisoft never really properly introduced us to this move in the first place. It's really bizarre that people discovered this years after the game was launched. Vaulting is a really cool and slick way to end your parkour streak, but that's all there is to it, unfortunately. The parkour system in general actually. Because the game never really pushes or challenges you to get good in parkour. It's not something that you really expected to perfect or master. It's the same for most games in the franchise that follow it. Parkour is a choice, not really a necessity, which can be good or bad depending on who you ask. But then why go through all the trouble of implementing such a complex system if you're not gonna make the most out of it? It's a shame that there aren't any parkour challenges that really test your parkour abilities. Or is there? There are some activities that do allow you to do so. Which brings me to the next section of this video. Now, activities and content wise, AC1 doesn't really have a wide plethora to offer. The whole game is structured in a way where you have to complete up to 3 investigation missions before starting the assassination. In order to locate these investigation missions, you would need to climb up viewpoints and synchronize in order to unlock part of the map. The viewpoints offer a nice little parkour mini puzzle forcing you to make clever decisions when traversing upwards. It's a really nice touch and gives more depth to the parkour system. However, you don't necessarily need to climb viewpoints as you can come across these challenges on your own. It will take a longer time to find them for sure, but you'll get there. These investigation missions include eavesdropping, basically spying on 2 people through the bench, pickpocketing an important document by following the person around, interrogation, basically beating people up until they give up and give you information, and informer challenges, which in my opinion are the best side missions in the game, as they each vary from time to time and not the same old boring structured missions like the eavesdropping and the pickpocketing ones. These challenges really ensure that you use some of your skills and abilities thoroughly to complete them. Remember what I said about challenges that test your parkour abilities? Well, you sort of get a little bit of that here, as one challenge involves you collecting flags through a high-speed parkour circuit, another one involves reaching the informer on time. These aren't perfect, sure, but at least it gives you somewhat of a challenge. While escort missions basically test your combat skills, but in my opinion these are the most boring out of the lot. And taking out guards and archers within the given time limit without being detected tests your stealth abilities and how you can best leverage the tools given to you, whether it be through throwing knives or the hidden blade. However, you can run out of throwing knives and the only way to get them back is fist fighting and beating these weird drug dealer looking dudes. I really don't know what their deal is and why they're carrying knives in the first place, but whatever. You can also pickpocket them for a more non-violent approach. Lastly, we have the Merchant Stand Destruction Challenge, where each of the merchant stands need to be destroyed within the given time limit. These are also fun to do, especially when throwing enemies into the stand to destroy them. I very much like the investigation missions in AC1. Although the structure of doing them can get very repetitive, at least it's built to make you feel like an assassin on the hunt. Completing these objectives make you feel like you're actually getting close to your main target, as some of the information revealed in these missions can come in very handy. For example, for the Jubair assassination missions, if you pay attention to the information given to you about Jubair carrying a pouch along with him, you can clearly use it to find the real one. However, it will take a little bit of focus and commitment, but it can be done. Another really impressive thing about one of these missions is that there was an actual side story about this father's son getting executed by Majid. You learn this during the eavesdrop mission, and during the actual assassination, the same character actually makes an appearance. However, he dies shortly after. But it really ties in his story well to the overarching plot, and it really makes us feel that this world is alive with its people and their ambitions. In the same mission, we are also told that one of our assassin brothers is getting executed. However, unfortunately, even if you manage to kill Majid before he executes him, it doesn't really give me any way to actually interact with him or actually free him. Which is such a shame, as it's such a missed opportunity in my opinion to actually have side objectives to do during the main mission. Besides these main activities you do in the story, you have not much really. You can collect flags across each area, which doesn't really unlock a grand reward, it just helps you achieve full sync. You could fight these mini Templar bosses, which are an insult to bosses in my opinion. Also save citizens and monks from being harassed, which is probably the only activity that comes effective later on, as saving citizens can unlock vigilantes who will hold back the guards and give you more time to escape. They can be pretty effective and useful during intense chases. Rescuing monks of course unlocks the ability for you to blend with the group of monks nearby. The side content isn't really that strong in AC1, and I think I know why, as this was built in mind to be more of an action-adventure game set in an open world environment. The game was basically meant to be a linear sandbox, if you will, with open spaces, not fully blown open world like the games that follow, which is why AC1 can sort of get away with having dull side content. AC1 ties in the investigation missions well to the story. They are truly the meat of the game's content. Side content is pretty mundane, but as I said, this game was never meant to be a full-blown open world game in the first place. But enough talk about the mission content. Let's actually talk about the narrative content of this game. There's so much to uncover. For any casual player looking into AC1, they probably would only be bothered about the cool stealth, parkour and action. But in the heart of it, Assassin's Creed is truly about the story. It used to be the most integral part of the games, holding everything together. I can understand for normies that the story can feel really bizarre and quite hard to follow, and since the cutscenes are unskippable, it could be even more annoying, especially if you just want to play the game and are not truly invested in the story. But if you pay attention, there is so much stuff in this well-written narrative. We start off as arrogant Altair, very much set in his ways, stubborn and angry. He knowingly breaks the 3 tenets of the Assassin's Creed, which is basically staying your blade from the flesh of an innocent, hiding in plain sight, and never compromising the Assassin Brotherhood. It is a nice introduction to the tenets of the creed itself. The game shows the full consequences of Altair's actions in Solomon's Temple, as him not being discreet and subtle about his approach leads to Masyaf being attacked later on, clearly compromising the Brotherhood. This really reinforces ours and Altair's belief in the creed. We are demoted and start from scratch again, which is a really good introduction to the game and a nice way for us to grow and learn things with Altair, an experienced assassin who knows a lot but doesn't quite put it into practice. We are tasked with taking the lives of 9 men from the Templar Order, who are basically the antagonists of this game and sworn enemy of the assassins, and their goal is to create a new peaceful Holy Land to prepare the people for this utopia in a sense. And that makes you question, how is that bad? Even the assassins ultimately want peace, right? This game really makes you question the goals and ambitions of both sides, which is a plot point of the franchise I really liked. This morally ambiguous dilemma, where each side is bad and good in its own way. It's not the end goal that is a problem for the two sides, but the means of achieving their goals. Assassins want to achieve peace for the land through freedom and free will of the people, whilst Templars have a more authoritarian approach, by simply controlling and manipulating the people around them, by creating order and structure. Altair is constantly questioning his beliefs in the creed. After each assassination and taking in each of the Templars' vague confessions, it really makes us and him even more confused. I like that this game gives you more questions than answers, and even at the end, when it's all revealed that Al-Mualim is the real enemy, even after taking him down, the game leaves us with more questions. Not only is the Altair story convoluted and really confusing, but so is the present day, where we follow Desmond Miles, who's kidnapped by Abstergo, who are basically Templars in disguise, pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Desmond is forced to enter the Animus, the machine that allows you to revisit the memories of your ancestors. Warren Riddick, one of the doctors involved with this Animus project at Abstergo, threatens Desmond to follow through, or else it will result in sudden death. They need something from Desmond, which is basically knowledge about the Peace of Eden, a device so powerful that can control people and bend their will. Templars want it so they can achieve exactly what they want, to be in control of everyone. We are about to be killed by them, but saved by Lucy, who is, surprise surprise, an assassin. Basically reinforcing the fact that they still need him, and she promises you it will all be okay. And here we are, greeted by weird fucking messages painted in blood all across the floor to Desmond's room. And once again, the game ends and we are left with more questions. There is so much going on in the present day that I can literally make a separate video talking about everything, to find out what's happening more behind the scenes. You can even access the computers of Vidic and Lucy by stealing their access codes. However, it does involve a lot of reading of emails, which could be really boring for most people. The game also has pretty noteworthy characters like Al-Mualim and Malik. The voice acting for each of these characters is astonishingly good. However, my one major complaint lies with the voice of Altair. I'm sorry, I have no idea why they thought it was a good idea for Altair to talk in a straight up American accent in a game set in the fucking Middle East. Stuff like this really breaks the immersion for me. On the more positive note, it's great to see Altair develop throughout the course of the game, from a brash, arrogant douchebag to a wise, mature assassin by the end. One who doesn't blindly follow anyone and always questions his and the Creed's actions. As said in the game, you can never truly know anything, only suspect. This line basically sums up the story and his growth well. I also love his relationship with Malik, and no, I don't mean it in a gay way, although it would be nice to see.
Oh, hell no, man. What the
They clearly don't get along well during the start, with constant disagreements from both sides, with Malik doubting Altair's trust and commitment to the Creed, and being rightfully angry at him for the loss of his brother, Kadar. And of course because of the loss of his wanking hand. But he finally opens up to him and forgives him for his past actions, once he truly starts seeing Altair grow up. Both become real good companions and friends by the end. These two lines perfectly sum up how much their relationship has grown.
Safety and peace, Malik.
Your presence here deprives me of both.
Safety and peace, my friend.
Your presence here will deliver us both.
I also found Al-Mualim to be a really fascinating character. All the conversations that you have with him throughout the game are so interesting, and the voice actor does such a good job at portraying him as a wise and knowledgeable mentor. He's so wise that he manipulates you throughout the game, as revealed by the shocking twist at the end. We fall for his lies. It breaks our trust in him, but the game constantly reminds you to keep questioning the people and their ambitions around you. The twist is really well built up, and the reveal is all the more shocking, where even Robert de Sable, your arch nemesis' intentions sound more noble than Al-Mualim, your master, and you realize that perhaps these two sides aren't so different after all. It's a sad realization that those 9 men you killed wanted what's best for the world, and the fact that you were just being used by a madman to achieve his goals. It's truly heartbreaking for Altair and the player. Al-Mualim is probably one of the most well-written and underrated characters in Assassin's Creed, and a lot of his lines in the game, especially towards the end, never fail to give me chills. The mystery and intrigue of AC1's narrative is what sets it apart from other video game stories. The fact that the game constantly introduces more questions than answers to keep us engaged, along with blending in weird sci-fi and supernatural elements at the end. It's easy to see why a story like this can put people off, but it's still miles better than the most baseline generic storyline in games we get nowadays. Assassin's Creed 1 still is, I would say, a brilliant start to this successful franchise. It built the foundation for what's next. It perfectly incorporated stealth and parkour into the world by meticulously designing its cities to complement these mechanics. Not only that, it also weaved in a really well-told sci-fi narrative and blended it in perfectly with the ancient historical storyline. It was a unique game for its time amid the sea of linear-based action games. AC1 was an open sandbox. In my opinion, it definitely revolutionized the open world formula, if not perfecting it. It's a game that I have utmost respect and admiration for, even if it has glaring flaws with its janky controls and glitches, along with a bit of a repetitive structure. I still believe this game to be good enough to stand on its own. It's not a masterpiece by any means, far from it in fact, but will I keep coming back to admire it more as time passes? Most definitely. You can say that I'm biased because of nostalgia, I agree, but let's be honest, we will never get to experience something quite like AC1 ever again. Hope you guys enjoyed this retrospective. I put in a lot of time and effort into this. Hope you guys can see that. Please like and subscribe if you want to show appreciation and want content like this in the future. But also, tell me what was your first experience with Assassin's Creed 1 like in the comments below. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it and I'll see you all very soon.